The judge's gavel hit the wood with a sound I still hear in my nightmares. Permanent legal custody. Those were the words that echoed through the courtroom, bouncing off walls that had witnessed countless families fall apart. I sat at that table, my hands still clammy from the testimony, and I watched my mother's empty chair in the gallery. She had walked out.
Just like that.
She had called me cold, heartless, and then she'd gathered her purse and left me there to finish what she had started 30 years ago. I'm Laura Mitchell. I'm a pediatric nurse at Seattle Children's Hospital, and I'm telling you this story because I think a lot of us know what it feels like to be the one who has to be strong. In my family, that word was never a compliment. It was an invoice. And on that day in court, I finally stopped paying it. The funny thing about being labeled the strong one is that nobody ever asks if you want to be. They just decide you are, and then they pile their problems on your back until you either break or learn to carry things you never should have had to carry in the first place. I was 18 when I first understood this. I had saved exactly $9,300. Every penny of it was earned with my own two hands, working shifts at a grocery store in Portland, Oregon, and later as a hostess at a diner, where I learned to smile through the greasy air and pocket every tip like it was gold. That money was supposed to be my ticket out. It was going to pay for my first 2 years of nursing school at the local community college. I had a plan. I had a dream. I had a future that I had built from nothing. I came home from my shift one night, exhausted from a double, my feet aching in shoes that had worn thin at the soles. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the soft glow of the kitchen light. My mother, Diane, was sitting at the table. She wasn't watching television or reading a book. She was just sitting there, waiting, her hands wrapped around a coffee mug that had long gone cold. She looked nervous. That should have been my first warning. Diane Mitchell didn't get nervous. She got angry. She got demanding. She got whatever she wanted through sheer force of will. But that night, she looked almost fragile. I dropped my purse on the counter.
Mom?
What's wrong? She motioned for me to sit down.
I didn't.
I stood there, still wearing my work apron, still holding my keys. Something in the air felt wrong. It felt like a trap. Samantha's in trouble, she said. Real trouble. My older sister. Samantha was 5 years older than me, always the golden child. Always the one who could do no wrong. She had a smile that could charm anyone and a habit of never facing consequences. Our mother had spent Samantha's entire life cleaning up her messes, while I watched from the sidelines, learning that being responsible meant being invisible. What kind of trouble? I asked. My mother's eyes darted away. She bounced a check. A big one. The bank is pressing charges. There's a warrant out for her arrest. I felt my stomach drop. This wasn't the first time Samantha had done something like this. She had a pattern. Get into trouble. Call Mom. Mom would fix it. Samantha would move on like nothing happened. But this time, it had gone too far. A warrant meant it was out of my mother's hands. It meant Samantha was facing real consequences. I don't understand, I said. What does this have to do with me? My mother took a deep breath. She reached into her purse and pulled out a piece of paper. She slid it across the table toward me. I looked down at it. It was a document stating that $9,300 was a voluntary gift to my parents. I already withdrew the money, she said quietly. I need you to sign this. The floor dropped out from under me. I felt like I had been punched in the chest. My savings. My $9,300. The money I had worked for, saved for, dreamed about. It was gone. She had taken it without asking. You withdrew my money? I could barely get the words out. Mom, that was for nursing school. That was everything. Your sister needs it more right now, she said, and there was that familiar edge in her voice now, the one that said she wasn't asking anymore. She's going to jail if we don't get her out. You can always save more money. You're young. You have time. I stared at her, my hands shaking.
No.
What? I said no, Mom. That's my money. I worked for it. I saved it. You had no right. Her face went cold. That was the moment I saw the mask slip. The nervous mother was gone, replaced by the woman I had known my whole life. The woman who always got what she wanted, no matter who she had to step on to get it. "You will sign this paper," she said, her voice flat and hard. "Or you will pack your things and leave." I looked at my father, Robert, who was sitting in his armchair in the living room, pretending to read the newspaper. He didn't look up. He didn't say a word. He never did. My father had spent his entire life being a ghost in his own home, hiding behind the newsprint while my mother bulldozed through everything in her path.
Dad.
I said, my voice cracking. "Are you going to say anything?" He lowered the paper just enough to meet my eyes. For a moment, I saw something there. Shame, maybe. Or regret. But then it was gone, and he was just a tired man who didn't want to get involved. "Do what your mother says," he muttered, and went back to his newspaper. That was it. That was all the defense I would ever get from him. I made my choice.
I didn't sign.
I walked into my bedroom, opened my closet, and pulled out a duffel bag. I didn't pack carefully. I just grabbed whatever I could fit. Jeans, shirts, underwear, my toothbrush. I left the things I couldn't carry. I left the pictures on my wall, the books on my shelf, the life I had known for 18 years. My mother was still standing in the kitchen when I walked back through. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't apologize. She just watched me with that cold, hard expression, like I was a stranger she had never loved. At the front door, I felt a hand on my arm. My father. He pressed something into my palm. A crumpled $40 bill. "For the bus," he muttered. He wouldn't meet my eyes. I didn't look back. I walked out the front door, and I didn't look back. For 5 years, I had no contact with them. I blocked their numbers. I changed my address. I built a new life from nothing. I worked my way up. I became a certified nursing assistant, working double shifts at a nursing home in Tacoma while living in a tiny studio apartment that cost more than it should have and smelled like stale cigarette smoke from the neighbors. I was exhausted all the time, but I was building something. Every shift, every paycheck, every certification felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. By the time I was 23, I had passed my boards and was working as a registered nurse at a children's hospital in Seattle. I had a stable job and a small, 2-bedroom apartment that was all mine. I had done it. I was free. Then my mother called. I recognized the number on my phone, even though it had been years since I'd seen it. I almost didn't answer. I let it ring, watching the screen light up with her name.
Diane.
I felt the old anger rising in my chest, mixed with something else I didn't want to acknowledge.
Fear.
Disappointment. The wound of being betrayed by the person who was supposed to protect you. But something made me pick up. Some instinct I couldn't name. "Laura?" Her voice was cracked.
Raw.
She was crying. Actually crying. I had never heard my mother cry like that.
"Please.
Please don't hang up." I stood in my kitchen, looking out the window at the Seattle skyline, the Space Needle visible in the distance. "What do you want?" "It's Samantha," she said. "She's in trouble. Real trouble." Those words again. The same words she had used 12 years ago when she stole my savings. I almost hung up. I almost threw the phone across the room and walked away from everything I had escaped. But something in her voice made me listen. I found out the truth. My sister had left her 6-year-old daughter home alone overnight. A 6-year-old. Lily. I had never even met my niece. I had cut contact before she was born, and Samantha had never reached out. But now Lily was caught in the middle of the mess her mother had made. Samantha had gone to a casino in Reno, Nevada. She had left Lily alone in the house with some frozen pizzas and a promise to be back in the morning. But one of the neighbors had heard Lily crying through the thin walls. They had called Child Protective Services. The investigation was swift and damning. Samantha was living with my parents in their house in Salem, Oregon. But the state ruled their home was unsuitable for Lily. A home study failed because they found that Samantha, the perpetrator of neglect, could not reside in the same home as her daughter. The social worker was talking about placing Lily in foster care with strangers. My family had a solution. They had always had a solution, even when it meant sacrificing me. They wanted me to let Lily live with them, but use my apartment as a paper address. They wanted to make it look like Lily was living with me in Seattle, where the state wouldn't check. It was fraud. It was the same lie they'd tried to get me to sign 12 years ago. The same disrespect. The same willingness to use me and throw me away. This time, I didn't walk away. I called the caseworker and applied to be Lily's official kinship placement. I underwent the home study, the background checks, and the interviews. I passed. 6-year-old Lily came to live with me. The first time I met Lily, she was wearing a pink dress that was too small for her. Her hair was tangled, and her shoes had holes in the toes. She looked at me with big brown eyes that had seen too much for a 6-year-old. She didn't smile.
She didn't talk.
She just stood there, clutching a worn pink backpack, waiting for me to decide what to do with her. I knelt down to her level.
Hi, Lily.
I'm your Aunt Laura. You're going to stay with me for a while, okay? She nodded. Just a tiny movement. Her grip on the backpack tightened. I reached out to take her hand, and she flinched. Just slightly. But I felt it. That small recoil told me everything I needed to know about what she had been through. The first week was hard. Lily was a quiet child, the kind of quiet that isn't peaceful but scared. She would sit in the corner of the living room, her knees drawn up to her chest, watching everything I did like she was waiting for me to explode. She barely ate. She barely slept. She would wake up screaming in the middle of the night, calling for her mother. I would go to her room, sit on the edge of her bed, and just be there. I didn't touch her unless she reached for me. I didn't push. I just waited. One afternoon, I was cleaning her room while she was at school, and I found the pink backpack shoved under her bed. I opened it. Inside were a change of clothes, a toothbrush, a small stuffed rabbit with one eye missing, and a granola bar. A go bag. She was 6 years old, and she had learned to expect being forgotten. She had learned to be ready to run. My heart broke. I sat on the floor of her room, holding that backpack, and I cried for the first time in years. I cried for Lily. I cried for the little girl I used to be. I cried for all the times I had been told to be strong while everyone around me fell apart. Lily started to trust me slowly. It was in the small things. The way she would let me brush her hair without flinching. The way she would take my hand when we crossed the street. The way she started to smile just a little when I made her favorite pancakes on Saturday mornings. I told the caseworker about the neglect I knew Samantha was still capable of. The nights she'd leave Lily with whoever was around, sometimes strangers, sometimes people who shouldn't have been trusted with a child. The time she left Lily in a car in the middle of summer while she went inside a bar. I told them everything.
I didn't hold back.
The visitation rules became much stricter. Supervised visits only and not at my home. Samantha would have to come to a designated center under the watch of a social worker for 1 hour a week. It was the best I could do to protect Lily. Then Samantha kidnapped her from school. I got the call at work. Lily's teacher, her voice trembling. Laura, I'm so sorry. There was a woman here claiming to be Lily's mother. She had ID. She said she had permission to pick her up. We didn't know. I felt the blood drain from my face. Did you see her leave? Where did they go? I don't know.
I'm so sorry.
We called the police. I drove to the school in a daze. I don't remember the drive. I don't remember parking. I just remember the fear, cold and sharp in my chest, squeezing the air out of my lungs. I had failed Lily. I had promised to protect her, and I had failed. The police found them a few hours later. Samantha had taken Lily to a fast food restaurant, then to the mall. They had bought ice cream and a new toy. It sounded innocent, almost normal, except for the fact that she had taken a child who wasn't hers from a school that wasn't hers and a city that had no jurisdiction over her. It was a massive violation. The county saw it as a huge red flag. The county attorney told me that to ensure Lily's safety, I needed to file for legal custody. Immediately.
So I did.
I filed a petition for custody in King County Family Court. I wrote a detailed affidavit, listing every instance of neglect, every time my family had tried to use me, starting with the $9,300 and ending with the paper address scheme. I told the truth. All of it. Then the pressure campaign started. My mother called, screaming that I was destroying the family. You are always so selfish, she yelled into the phone. You think you're better than us, don't you? You think you're above us? You don't know what it's like to have a child who needs you. You've never had children. You don't understand. I listened to her rage until I couldn't anymore. I understand more than you ever did, Mom. I said quietly. I understand that Lily deserves to be safe. I understand that someone has to put her first, and that someone is going to be me.
She hung up on me.
My father called, his voice weary, telling me to keep it in the family. He sounded old and broken. Laura, please, he said. Just work this out. We don't need lawyers. We don't need the courts. We can fix this. Dad, I've been fixing things my whole life, I said. I'm done fixing. I'm going to tell the truth. Samantha's lawyer reached out. They offered a deal. They would agree to me having custody, but only if I withdrew my affidavit and allowed Samantha unsupervised visitation. They wanted the truth buried. They wanted me to sign another piece of paper just like I had 12 years ago. I refused. The day of the custody hearing was surreal. I sat at one table, my hands clammy. Samantha and her lawyer sat at another. My parents sat in the gallery, my mother glaring at me, with eyes full of hatred. The judge called me to the stand. I swore to tell the truth. I detailed the years of being the family scapegoat. I talked about the money. I talked about the neglect. I told the judge about the go bag under Lily's bed. I laid it all out, piece by piece. As I was talking about the casino trip, I heard a commotion from the gallery. My mother, Diane, stood up. Her face was red. She pointed a finger at me and shouted, "You are a cold, heartless girl." Then she grabbed her purse and walked out of the courtroom. My father followed her, head down, without a word. The judge, a woman named Judge Carter, looked at my mother's empty seat, then at me, and then at the documents before her. She granted me permanent legal custody of Lily. Samantha's rights were severely restricted. Samantha came to visit a few times after that. She'd show up late, or promise to come and never show. Eventually, she stopped coming altogether. The visits dwindled to nothing. The last phone call went unanswered. I took Lily to therapy. We built a life. Now Lily is 13. She's a good kid. She's funny and smart, and she's finally starting to trust the world. She has friends at school. She plays soccer. She argues with me about homework and bedtime, like any normal teenager. Just last week, I came home from a shift and went to check on her. I saw her in her room, holding that same worn pink backpack. She looked at it for a long minute. Then she opened it, pulled out the clothes and the toothbrush and the little stuffed rabbit, and put them in her dresser drawer. Then she took the empty backpack and put it in the back of her closet, on the top shelf. She didn't need it anymore. She knew she wasn't going anywhere. That night, I sat on my couch in my apartment in Seattle, looking out at the Space Needle, and I thought about what my mother said in court. Cold, she called me. I'm not cold. I'm just done paying for their choices. I spent years hearing that I was the strong one, and I finally realized what it meant. It meant, you will endure, so we don't have to. The day I stopped paying that invoice was the day I started loving honestly. And it started with loving that little girl enough to stand up and say, I won't lie for you. I'll tell the truth for her. Lily came into the living room that night, wearing her pajamas, her hair still damp from the shower. She curled up next to me on the couch and laid her head on my shoulder. Mom, she said. I froze. She had never called me that before. She had always called me Laura. Yes, sweetheart. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Thank you for not leaving me. I wrapped my arm around her and held her close. I will never leave you, I said. Never. We sat there in the quiet of the apartment, the city lights flickering outside the window, and I knew that this was what I had been fighting for all along. Not revenge, not justice, just this. Just Lily, safe and loved and finally able to put down her backpack. She had learned that she didn't have to run anymore. And so had I.